and a member of the Grange as well as Lemoyne Community Arts, and I'm welcoming you and giving you a bit of history about how the Grange started. Now, the Grange as a word used to mean a farmhouse or a shed where you'd keep, your produce that you had raised. But by the middle of the 1800s, it became just about synonymous with the Order of Patrons of Husbandry. Kind of an old-fashioned word. Patrons are people who stand up for a cause. Husbandry means to take care of things. The three basic principles of the Grange, I love it, this is why I joined. You husband the earth. Humane treatment of domesticated animals, equal status and participation for men and women. This was in 1867 that the organization started, after the Civil War. Amazing. And I just think those three basic principles are ones 150 years later we're still grappling with in a bigger way, Okay, whoops, let me get my notes so I don't get too redundant. Okay, by the mid-19th century, American farmers realized that industrialization was becoming a powerful force in the country. And if they didn't speak up, they would be pushed aside. So the organization started with farmers in the middle of the country, in the Midwest, and it very rapidly spread to every state in the country. And they went out and recruited others to come on, join in. We need a voice so that we're heard at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level. And they soon joined by the 1900s. I mean, there were literally thousands of Granges with many, many, many members. Okay, what did they do? Was it successful? Absolutely. Here, they lobbied for and achieved fair prices for their products. They received farm subsidies and a range of services like transportation. Look, railroads were big. They had to have access to them to get their goods out. What else? They got help for economic development, for funding for rural schools, for establishing health and safety codes. The Grange was responsible for establishing the Farm Credit Service, the Extension Service, and our free rural mail delivery. We're enjoying all of those today. Now, the structure of this organization was hierarchical. There is the national, state, regional, and local. Local Granges are called subordinate Granges, and Lemoyne is a subordinate Grange. It's number 264. Many subordinate Granges chose names other than their town's name. Like Surrey's is Arbutus, Blue Hills is Halcyon, Franklin is Scudic. Now, the subordinate Granges were grouped in 5 or 6 of them into pomonas. And the pomonas then reported to the state Grange, and the state Granges were always in the capital of that state, and then the state Granges reported to the headquarters in Washington. That was the hierarchy. Originally, meetings were very secretive. It was sort of like Masons. You had to be a member in order to come to a meeting. And there are 7 degrees of membership. The first 4 are the most important because those are the ones you need to have passed in order to be at a meeting of a subordinate Grange. There are formal initiations for that. I've put something on the table back there with information about what those first 4 are, and they relate to the 4 seasons because of agriculture, all of that. So the 4 allowed you to be in a subordinate. If you went to the pomona Granges, that's the 5th, and if you went to a meeting at the state level, that's the 5th. That's quite a trip, I can tell you. And then the 7th is for federal. I've never gone that level, so I'm not sure what they do at the federal level. Okay, originally, also, the meetings followed a very strict procedure. There is a written manual. I put one out there that you can look through if you want. The hall was set up exactly so. The officers had to walk in a particular pattern. Everything was very formal. They loved the ritual. And the order of the meetings was very strict. Officers had, they talked on different things. Agriculture, of course, a big one. What was happening with the weather, what crops were doing, how the prices were, etc. Somebody always talked about politics. Bills that were being discussed or passed locally, or in Augusta, or in Washington. There was always a report on community service. That was big. Religion was part of it. Every meeting opened and closed with a prayer, and there was reference to God, but there was never any denomination specific. The same with politics. Although they were very involved with what was going on, they deliberately did not support a candidate or a political party. They remained free from that. What else? Oh, an important officer was a lecturer. Lecturer was in charge of entertainment. There were songs, games, plays, recitations, contests, all kinds of stuff. People came to the Grange for fun, for information, but for fun. It was the social gathering place, and it was just big in many, many communities. Okay, few operate that way anymore, and many, many subordinate Granges have closed. And it's because the social aspect, the political aspect has been taken over by other organizations. But many of them, like ours, have figured out how to have a different focus. And ours, we'll learn more about what our focus is. But for instance, Blue Hill focuses on cooking. They have a state-of-the-art kitchen in which people can come and freeze or can things. There's one up near Dover Foxcroft that does strictly music, lots and lots of music. Surrey does pretty much dancing, and we do the arts plus community service. So you must know, however, that if the membership on any Grange, come and find, here, look, excuse me, there are 2 seats here.
We're good.
Very good, okay. If membership drops below 13, the state Grange closes it. And they dispose of all the contents as they see fit, and they sell the building for market rate. So, you've got to keep 13 members, and we do have 13 members, which is good. Our current practice at the Grange is we don't follow the strict protocol of the head person in Washington told me, do it once a year, But on your regular meetings, we're much more informal. We welcome anyone to our monthly potluck, and you'll see a sign up there for it, the first Wednesday of the month. You can join in with our meeting afterward. We're always open to new ideas, new faces. So that's Lemoyne Grange. And now we'll hear from the master of Lemoyne Grange, one of the 13 offices.
Good afternoon, folks. As the current master of the Lemoyne Grange, I'd like to correct Carol. There's 24 members now, not 13. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you here to Lemoyne Grange. Many of you do not realize that Lemoyne Grange was formed just 14 years after our town separated from Trenton. Yeah. In February of 1884, Lemoyners decided to join the national movement. You heard about the national role. Right now, I want to tell you what the Grangers have done in our town. The master of the state Grange came down from Augusta to officiate and install 42 original members. At the time, our dues was 30 cents a year. We met in the town hall at the start, and in the fall of 1885, we had a special meeting to make arrangements for the building of our own hall and store. We purchased this lot here on the corner from Noel B. Coolidge at the cost of $3,558.59. Yes, indeed, we raised the money, and we raised a 3-story building. You can see it on that back wall over there. There's a picture of it, and on this very spot, by the fall of 1886, we moved in just 3 years after the starting date. The store was on the first floor. It sold staples and farm equipment and to the homes. What the heck would I have it? It sold staples for farms and homes. Excuse me, dear. Our meeting hall was on the second floor, and on the third floor was for our suppers. There were outhouses out back and a stable out back. The stable was our version of today's parking garage. It would accommodate the guests' horses and carriages after a 2-day ride from Bucksport. Imagine that. Lemoyne Grange is number 264. Think about that number. It meant there was already a lot of Granges in Maine. Our weekly meetings were well attended, seldom less than 50, and most of the time over 100. New members added almost every time. For a while there, we had the largest number of members in a subordinate Grange, over 200. We also had the first woman elected master. We knew the importance of a woman in our farm community.
Your picture is up there on the wall.
Yeah. We heated the building with wood stoves, of course. Well, in 1916, there was a chimney fire that burned the whole place to the ground. Didn't stop us, though. However, in 1918, we erected this building, the one you're sitting in right now, on the old fieldstone foundation. Didn't need it quite so big, so we shortened the length a little bit and kept it to 1 story. Meetings in this hall, suppers in the basement, and no more store. Soon after our new building was up, we decided to add a painted curtain to our stage. In 1922, local artist Maxwell Leland was hired to create this curtain for the sum of $65. Pretty good deal when you consider it cost us $3,500 to have it restored a few years ago. He asked us to pick a scene here in town. Any of you in the audience here know where this is? You do? Yes. Well, it's where Partridge Cove Road butts into Seal Cove Road and the Marlboro Beach Road. There's a few more trees there now as you overlook in the yard. Well, again, thanks for coming. Hope to see you join us. Now we'll hear about a few more things that are going on in town.
I would hope that what we would follow right now is a conversation with Linwood Brand, who was master for many, many years here. I don't know how many of you know Linwood. He lives right across the road there. And unfortunately, a few weeks ago, he broke his ankle, and he's still not feeling up to moving around. So Kathy and I are going to talk about some of the things that have been done in the Grange, like from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, etc. For instance, I joined in the late 90s, and what was big then were suppers. I mean, not just our Grange, but all around the community. People thought of Grange, well, of course, you have a baked bean, coleslaw supper with lots of pie. And it was just standard Saturday night in the warm weather, people would go to a Grange supper. Well, our Grange figured out they could actually get more people here if they had a turkey dinner on a Sunday noon than a Saturday night baked bean. So when I joined, that's what we were doing. I mean, we would serve 100 people downstairs and sometimes have to do a second serving. And there was all kinds of stuff that was going with it, of course, and it was beastly hot. A wood-burning stove to cook all the turkeys and the gravy and the potatoes and all the vegetables. And fortunately, the pies were made at home and brought in, so we didn't have to bake those down. But that was a big deal, and we charged, I think it was $7 for a huge dinner. And most of the Granges raised money for, maintaining their building by having these suppers. What else? I remember that Dorothy, now I'm forgetting her name. Richardson, of course, Dorothy Richardson, who's been disabled for quite a while. She put on a fabulous haunted house for kids. I mean, the whole place was transformed. And I remember when they did at Halloween a party with traditional games like dunking for apples and stuff like that. And the teenagers said, well, they're junior high and maybe they came. They thought if this was going to be pretty stupid, they really got into it. We had a lot of fun. We had junior members, and the Honeywell's granddaughter was a junior member. And Linwood talked about how as a junior member, you had to be 14 to join. He was so active all the time. There's a picture of him back there in costume. He was in multiple plays. The Grange put on plays all the time. It was standard entertainment around town. After Linwood then served in the Navy and came back, he became master and really oversaw all kinds of community service activities of the Grange. And Kathy, you were a kid growing up in the Grange.
I can believe.
Yes. Tell us some of the things that you did in the Grange.
Well, I grew up in Town Hill, which is on MDI as you go on there. And the Grange was located at the top of the hill with the general store, the fire department, the church, and my great aunt Addie's ice cream parlor. And that was the center of our little world there in Town Hill. And the Grange building, as I remember, it was this massive building that much larger than this one. Of course, I was a kid, so it just seemed that way. But perhaps it was the size this one was before it burned. I know for sure that we went back much further than this. And we did have the upper floor as well. The suppers and the rummage sales were held on the main floor, and the entertainment and Grange meetings were on the top floor because, again, that was where the stage was located. My parents and grandparents were deeply involved in the Grange. My Salisbury grandparents were state officers, and my grandfather was awarded the Silver Star for helping begin 8 subordinate Granges. Dad worked most of the time when we were kids, so it was Mom who did most of the Grange duties. My relatives, my mother and all my aunts, great aunts and on, spoke often of the hijinks circus that was performed by Grange members in the 40s. That was before my time. But as a kid, I remember getting into the storage closet and playing with some of the equipment from them. They had an organ grinder, they had a real trapeze swing, it was metal, they had a monkey costume, which I had mentioned earlier, and the clown suit worn by my grandfather. Once as a teenager, I put on that clown suit, 2-foot-long shoes, red and white check top, Blasuni bottom, and a hat, And I wore that pushing a wheelbarrow through the 4th of July parade in Bar Harbor, picking up horse dung. It was great because my friends from high school did not know it was me. It was one of my best 4th of July parade events. Baked bean suppers were held regularly, and I can remember aunties steaming the canners full of brown bread on the big stoves. And we kids got to run the pump. The pump was just outside off the kitchen down the steps, and thought that was great fun for some reason. And keep the kitchen supplied with water. I also got my first taste of waiting on tables at these suppers, probably 9, 10, 11 years old. And the ladies in the kitchen would warn us about some men to stay away from and that they would take care of that. The Grange in Town Hill hosted lots of dances. The Boy Scouts held their dances there. I can remember getting all dressed up and going on my date because the girls had to be asked to go to the dances. They were just 5th through 8th grade at that time. And several times a year in the summers, they hired country bands to play. Curly O'Brien and Mom's favorite, Halloween Pine. Halloween Pine was really hard to get. I can remember her being on the phone trying to organize these things. One of its members was Dick Curlis of Haynesville Woods fame. Mom was the lecturer for the Grange meetings, and my mother's daddy, the piano player. My other grandmother, Irma, was the piano player at the Marival Grange. I couldn't attend the first part of the secret meeting, so I'd wait in the big entry room and probably going up and down the stairwells. They had these massive stairs, and just waiting until they went through their secret stuff. And then I could go in when they did the entertainment. And it would be poems, singing, readings, telling jokes, a skit. One time after the Beatles appeared on Ed Sullivan's, and that would have been, 1962, I think. Mom and I made guitars out of cigar boxes that my dad had, and we covered them with construction paper, and then Dad cut us some sticks to put on it, and I don't know how we rigged it exactly, but I remember stringing twine to make these guitars. They were only 4-string. And Mom and 3 of the ladies got some Beatle-like wigs, and they got on stage and lip-synced to I Want to Hold Your Hand, and I saw her standing there. They were quite the hit. Unfortunately, the Grange, they really hadn't made a lot of modern updates on it, and the building finally went into disrepair and became unsafe. I can remember even conversations when we were dancing, like, is it going to hold up through these dances? So it disbanded there. Members joined with the Trenton Grange, which I also joined as a teenager and ended up marrying the piano player's grandson. And the Town Hill Grange was torn down sometime after that. So, and now I'm back to belonging to the Lemoyne Grange, so it's great. Okay, right.
And now it's time for another song, and I hope you join us. Kathy is
Bringing in the sheaves. It's on
And
your
just start
back there. And sheaves are those bundles of wheat standing and wrapped around, and it's one of the Grange symbols, and you should see it around here somewhere on something.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna play the refrain, which is the.
Okay, play it and we'll start singing, okay? Thank you. Now, let us hear about our relationship with Lemoyne Community Arts.
Thanks, Carol. Hi, everyone. I'm Carol Mason. I'm the current president of Lemoyne Community Arts. as well as a Grange member. I have a dual distinction. As you've heard over the years, Granges have changed their focus to meet the needs of their local communities. After the Second World War, farming was no longer a principal focus for Lemoiners. In 2008, an even larger change came to the Lemoyne Grange when the newly formed Lemoyne Community Arts, we call LCA, leased the building to house and present the arts. Theater arts have been in the lead because one of the founding members, our own Carol Cordy, came with a professional theater background. Other arts have included dance and stage movement and creative expression. The last few summers, we've hosted modern dance workshops and performances by professional dancers from New York, and we'll do that again this summer. In our early years, Lynn Teicheiler held dynamic instruction and displays in spinning and knitting and weaving. More recently, Wynn Guglielmo initiated Open Mic, which ran for several years prior to COVID. Open Mic celebrated the 4 seasons by bringing in musicians and poets and skit writers. Upcoming, we have a new workshop plan that Brent Hutchins is planning to hold for us, a 4-hour workshop on set building, and there's some information back there on it, if you'd like to take it when you go. The majority of our events involve many LCA members in many different capacities, all centered around the arts and theater. They involve acting and running lights and sound and music and props and costuming and print and publicity and fundraising and even vacuuming and housekeeping skills, because that has to be done too. Membership in LCA entitles everyone to participate in play readings. Since COVID, we've launched Zoom play readings performed from members' homes. Many of us haven't been involved in the arts since grade school or high school or like me in college, but we've all found working together in this beautiful small theater hall to be exactly the rewarding experience we've been looking for. Lastly, it's important to understand that leasing this beautiful building involves more than just producing plays. LCA's lease is unusual in 2 ways. First, we are responsible not only for its maintenance, but also for its restoration. And the structure is over 100 years old, as you heard. Ticket prices and donations cover only the cost of our productions. They cannot cover the big items like new siding or a new roof or a wheelchair ramp. For those, we must fundraise, hence our 501c status. The second way the lease is unusual is that both LCA and the Grange share the use of the building equally. In this way, we can focus together on the unique aspects of our community. So on behalf of LCA, I thank you for coming today. You're always welcome. And know too that we would love you to join us, not only as a member of the audience, which we think is pretty great, but as a member of either the Lemoyne Grange or LCA or both. Thank you.
And now we will hear from our master about some of these upgrades that we have accomplished.
In recent years, the Grange has worked with Lemoyne Community Arts to upgrade this building. We have to acknowledge LCA for the bulk of the fundraising, and the Grange has contributed what it could along the way. At this point, the total that has been raised and put into improving our building here is approximately $70,000. Pretty impressive for a small organization. So I'm going to go over a few things that we've done sort of since LCA came into the picture. We started with a new roof. The old leaky roof needed to be fixed, and we coordinated with the church over there, and they put on a dessert theater. And that money went towards putting the new roof on, and that was the beginning of LCA after that. Then we moved on to solving the problem of when you plug the coffee maker in, the circuits would blow. So we fundraised and we hired an electrician, and we had the upstairs upgraded. So you could plug in the coffee maker and not have the circuits blow. We also added these extra lights here, and then we moved on with the electrical and we put in this light bar. We started out with some flashlights hanging from strings. Well, when you get the light bar and lights up there, you've got to have a light and sound booth to run it, so that was added in. After that, we decided it was time to insulate, and we had 12 inches of insulation blown in the ceiling, and we had the walls done. Now, my job during that insulating of the walls was to hold the plywood sheet up against the wall, so when they put the insulation in, it didn't blow that plaster right off the wall. And I can tell you, you could feel that wall moving. So, well then, in the spring, we lost a car in the parking lot during mud season. We decided that wasn't going to work, and we got our good friend Jay Fowler here to help us out, and dug this all out and put in a fresh coat of good strong gravel. Kind of fixed that problem, although I've been told on a good rainy night in the spring, you can still see an antenna come up out there. Well, then we kind of looking at the shabbiness of the building, and we decided we'd go and take all the old clapboards off. And at the time, EBS, the local building supply, was gracious enough to donate the vinyl siding that you see on the building, which is now Hammond Lumber.
Thanks to you.
Yes, and this fella here has an integral part in that.
Yes.
So we moved on, and we had decided we had a handicap ramp, but it was falling apart, and it was decided to build a new handicap ramp, and it was a major funding donation from the Sanderson family in memory of David Sanderson, which helped move that along.
I want to testify how wonderful it is. I'm glad to be here.
And here's our customer right here. Well, thank you, Dave. We're glad you enjoyed the trip. Huh?
Thanks for pushing.
So that during that renovation, it also included putting new front steps in, a new front door, and in the library back here, we call it another door, because you could basically throw a cat through all the doors. So what else we got? Maybe
Did you ever throw a cat?
Huh?
Did you ever throw a cat through it?
No, we couldn't do that.
In the basement.
So we had an auxiliary heat added this year in the basement, as actors during the fall production was tired of shivering down there. And this year was the first year I heard a complaint. It was too hot. So I guess we accomplished a good thing. Then we did the curtain restoration, and this was a donation from Fred and Ann Stocking in memory of Marion Stocking. So now in the future, we plan to take care of the basement electrical, because we did this upstairs, and get rid of those old fluorescent lights down there and put some of them newfangled LCD things. and get some plugs down there too. So, and we're gonna winterize the basement and the basement entrance, another place you can throw a cat through. We found out a little while ago that we're gonna be looking at a new water main. Seen where during that big freeze a few weeks ago, we went to shut it off and it wouldn't shut off. So that's kind of moved up on the agenda for this spring. And that's about where we stand. We appreciate your donations and all your help, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Time for another song. Let's have My Old Kentucky Home. You know, it's amazing that the Grangers love Stephen Foster. And My Old Kentucky Home plays.
Yeah, and tell them what I'm gonna say.
Okay, you're playing the refrain while we're getting it. You'll all join in with us. Lemoyne sang all of Stephen Foster's songs. It's amazing. Kentucky. Okay, but let's hear it. Okay, we tried rehearsing this and every time we do it wrong. Let's just start at the beginning, right now.
You want to play the whole thing?
No, I'll start at the beginning.
We're starting at the beginning.
Why
Ready?
not?
Oh, the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. 'Tis summer, the old folks are gay. The moon's bright and the meadows in the bloom. All birds make music all the day. Weep no more, my lady. Oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home far away. Okay, let's now hear about some of the things that Lemoyne Grange is currently doing and has done with children, for the community.
Good afternoon, I'm Robin Basie, a relatively recent member of the Grange. One of the reasons I made the decision to join the Grange was the Grange's focus on service to the community. Over the years, this service has taken many forms. Most recently, we held a cribbage afternoon for players of all levels and ages. The building is currently being used by the Girl Scouts for their meetings. We have sponsored candidates' nights and Red Cross blood drives, pre-COVID, of course. Last summer, we restarted our participation in the Blue Hill Fair, which in the past was a big deal, it being an agricultural fair. We plan to participate again this summer. In years past, the Grange provided various services to veteran patients at Togus, including providing postage stamps, greeting cards, visits, and knitting prayer shawls, I skipped a lot, and making lap robes. We served elderly residents through home and hospital visits and knitting prayer shawls for people in nursing homes. For the not so elderly, hand knitted preemie caps for Maine Coast Memorial Hospital, and dolls which were sent to Africa for orphans of AIDS patients. During the 1947 fire on MDI, Lemoyne Grange was used as a staging area for firefighters. Volunteers met here for food and rest before returning to fight the blaze. After the famous turkey dinners served from our kitchen downstairs for many years, plates of whatever food remained were sent to Lemoyners who were homebound or in need. During the 80s and 90s, 1980s and 90s, one of our active members prepared small bags with toys and coloring books for children who accompanied a parent waiting for a hearing or sentencing at Hancock County Courthouse in Ellsworth. The Grange has, in the past, been involved in support of other organizations, such as the Lions Club's Eyeglass Project and the Shriners Dialysis Project. Even our parking lot serves the community. It's a perfect spot to stop and use your cell phone safely, or to park your car while you take a walk along the shore road. Delivery trucks can stop off the road while getting clarification of directions. And for decades, it has housed a huge water tank underground for Lemoyne's volunteer fire department. When Grangers have seen a need in the community, they have tried to use their talents to make things and provide space and time to address those needs. Thank you.
Now Carol Duffy is going to talk about our relationship with children.
And in the Grange and LCA world, I'm known as Carol Ann Duffy because, as you can see, we have too many Carols here. You didn't introduce me correctly.
Oh.
Whenever I mention the Grange to older people who grew up in Lemoyne, they always get really excited telling me how fun it was to walk hand in hand from the old school down to the Grange for school programs. Graduations, 8th grade plays, Christmas, and spring programs are all held here. The names of 8th grade actors joined the names of Grangers on the walls backstage. One person remembers having a teacher who started practicing for the Christmas program in September and the spring program in January. That'd be my type of teacher. In June and July 2005, Carol Cordy directed her play Silly Soup with a cast of Lemoyne School students. This was followed by Taradiddle Tales, Taradiddle Travels, and Nate the Great in following years. The student actors were all very excited to write their names backstage. A few years later, Lemoyne School Drama Club was formed. Of course, we had to use the Grange stage with the assistance of Lemoyne Community Arts. In the spring of 2015, our first performance consisted of a student-written and directed play and musical numbers from the school's jazz band. Several $100s of donations from attendees helped us buy the new lights for our stage. It's right up there. The next year, Lemoyne's primary grade students walked hand in hand to the Grange for a spring program directed by Karen Hawthorne. And all the middle-level actors couldn't wait to add their names to the ones from previous generations on the backstage walls. Beginning in at least the 1970s and continuing into the early 2000s, Boy Scout Troop 88 met in the Grange except for the winter months when the building was shut down. This tradition continues now with Girl Scouts using our building. The Grange benefited from Boy Scout service projects. For example, they painted the front steps numerous times. Eagle Scout projects were some of the first Grange renovation projects. Jeremiah Graham oversaw the construction of our first handicap ramp, and Brian Duffy organized the crew that scraped and painted the exterior of the building. Because my sons Sean and Brian liked the Grange stage so much, they held their Eagle Scout ceremony here in March 2001. And Yvonne Braun brought the National Granges Dictionary Project to Lemoyne. She and her husband Linwood would go to our school and give a dictionary to each third grader. This tradition is now being continued in Yvonne's memory by current Grange members. And we haven't forgotten about Lemoyne's high school students. Each year, the Lemoyne Grange gives a scholarship to a graduating senior. Generations of Lemoyne children have passed the Grange doors for school programs, plays, scouts, and haunted houses. Is your name written on the backstage wall? Feel free to look for it at the end of our play. Thank you.
Time for another song and a refocus back on farming. Okay, we're going to do The Farmer Feeds Them All.
Play the refrain.
She's going to play the refrain, and then we'll come in at the beginning, okay?
Benefactor, he proves too great and small in every
very typical of the many political kinds of songs that the Grange. It's time for a break. We're going to take a 10-minute break where you can have refreshments, informal question and answer, and 7 of our presenters are going to get into costume, and then we will show you 2 acts of a 3-act comedy that was done on the stage in the early 1900s. Okay? So take a break and